Morning everyone! Today is May 15th, 2016. Welcome you to our home church. Let us prepare our heart and mind to heaven. Let us sing a holy song. Number 53, By and By. 53, By and By.
By and by, when the morning comes, all the saints of God are gathered home. We'll tell the story of how we overcome, and we'll understand it better by and by. We are tossed and driven on the restless season's tide. Somber skies and howling tempests oft succeed a bright sunshine. In the land of perfect day, when the mists have rolled away, we will understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, all the saints of God are gathered home. We'll tell the story of how we overcome, and we'll understand it better by and by. We are often destitute of the things that life demands, want of shelter and of food, thirsty hills and barren lands. We are trusting in the Lord and according to His word, we will understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, all the saints of God are gathered home. We'll tell the story of how we overcome, and we'll understand it better by and by. Trials dark on every hand, and we cannot understand all the ways that God will lead us to that blessed promised land. But He guides us with His eye, and we'll follow Him on high, and we'll understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, all the saints of God are gathered home. We'll tell the story of how we overcome, and we'll understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, all the saints of God are gathered home. We'll tell the story of how we overcome, and we'll understand it better by and by.
Thank you. Next song is 35, When I Before the Lord. 35, When I Before the Lord.
When I behold the Lord of all, my old self dies away. So dies the world of sinfulness, giving birth to good. Soon a new self emerges, clear and bright and pure. Come and behold the new life, heaven and earth eternal, fervently I desire. Heavenly rays so softly fall, shining the sun of grace, springing forth in brightness, fruit of the tree of life. Torment of doubt is over, gone is the shadow of death, torturing every part of me. Sinfulness rules my soul. Still God can raise me purified, bringing creation to me, letting me live in His palace, shining with golden light. Boundless His love and kindness, boundless His love for me, boundless His love and kindness, boundless His love for me.
Thank you. Next song is 124, Love is Born Anew. 124, Love is Born Anew.
Father, you've been on this road so long. Oh, won't you rest your weary head upon my heart? Just take my hand, and together we will find a secret place where dreams are born and love's alive. Your love's alive. Rock that stands so strong. Although the waves have come against you for so long, you still go on, and your hope is like a flame that's ever burning through the darkness and the pain. Turn the teardrops into smiles. You're the Father, I'm your child, and together we will heal this world, and love is born anew. Father, you've been on this world so long. Oh, won't you rest your weary head upon my heart? Just take my hand, and together we will find a secret place where dreams are born and love's alive. Your love's alive.
Thank you. The first song about the Heavenly Parent and True Parents. Today is a Sunday morning, May 15, 2016. It's about the Heavenly Parent and True Parents. 경배. Hello. Please join me prayer. Most lovely Heavenly Parents and True Parents, We are so grateful to receiving new day and new week. You created beautiful world, mountain and ocean and tree and flower. Now the time is sprouting the flower and preparing the seed to grow, Heavenly Parents. We are so grateful. Your father and mother creating us to become like you, Heavenly Parents. Your grace and love so precious. Make us grow, Heavenly Parents. We are so grateful to participate in your will, Heavenly Parents. We are hand in hand creating your world, Heavenly Parents. In the Bible says that through the Jesus prayer, we seek the kingdom of God and your righteousness, so that everything added to us, Heavenly Parents. Your kingdom is a pure love of your heart, and we receiving your love and guidance, through that our heart can clear and beautiful and lovable heart and a loyal heart and faithful heart and really humble and sincere heart can alive, Heavenly Parent. We are grateful to receiving your love, Heavenly Parents. We want to offer our life to beauty and harmony and love to you, Heavenly Parents. Please guide this week to understand your love and your word, Heavenly Parents. We receiving new word, and through that we can dedicate it to invest ourselves in love to this world and create beautiful world. Please bless this time. We are grateful. We report in the name of Raman Tamiko Montanaro, Centennial Blessed Family, Aju. Amen. Thank you. Please seated. Welcome our Pastor Montanaro. Welcome.
Hi everyone. So today I'd like to read from Father's autobiography, a chapter from his early life in Japan when he was still a student in Japan. And then I want to talk about how our way is clear. Our way of our life is very clear and very simple. This week I had a chance to talk to an old friend of mine, and it was sad because I found out that, he's not sure about where he's going. He's not clear. And I shared with him my vision and my hope, and I hope that I inspired him. But I think something of his fear, pain, or difficulty rubbed off on me, and I spent a day or two thinking about what he was going through. And I think this sermon is a result of that. I think I want to talk about how our way is clear and the way to happiness. How can we find happiness? What's the way to happiness? Because we all want to be happy, right? So what's the way to happiness? So let's read Father's autobiography first, and then we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about the way to happiness, all right? So what I'd like to do is have Sakiko, would you come up here? And pass out these new ones. I think they're all new up top. One to everybody. All right, take a back stack. Here. Does everyone have one? Oma? She's got enough? Little man can have one too. Yeah, here's one for you. Okay. So, we're going to read from page, I think it's 69. Yeah. You all have the same page with me? Befriending laborers by sharing their suffering. For everyone at home, you can go online to the link I give you, the Father's Autobiography as a Peace-Loving Global Citizen. And you can go to page 69 and you can read along with us if you like. Or you can pause the video while you get that page up. And this is a very deep story. Anyone who has doubt about who Father is as the second coming of Christ should simply read this chapter and ask themselves if anyone else has ever lived like this. So let's all read together. What I'd like to do is I'd like to invite each of the kids up, starting with the eldest, to come up here and stand over here and you can read. So why don't we start with Joshua, and then we can, and then Tamman, and then Sungmi, if you can go afterwards, so you can set up the camera. Go ahead, Joshua, you come on up, and you can read for a while, and then pass it to Tamman and like that.
So, 69?
Yeah, right there.
Befriending laborers by...
Yeah, read very clearly for everyone at home.
Okay. Befriending laborers by sharing their suffering. Just as I had done in Seoul, I made it a point to go everywhere in Tokyo. When my friends would go to places such as Nikko, to see the beautiful scenery, I would prefer to stay behind and walk through all the neighborhoods of Tokyo. I found that it was a city that looked fancy on the outside, but was actually filled with impoverished people. Again, I gave all the money I received from home to the poor people. Back then, everyone in Japan was hungry too. Among the Korean students, there were many who were in financial difficulty. When I received my allotment of meal tickets each month, I would give them all away to students who couldn't afford them and told them, "Eat. Eat all you want. I don't worry about earning money. I could go anywhere and work as a day laborer and be fed." I enjoyed earning money and using the money to help pay the tuition of students who didn't have money. Helping others and giving them food to eat filled me with energy. After I had given away all the money I had, I would work as a delivery man using a bicycle-drawn cart. I went to every district of Tokyo with that cart. Once in Ginza, with its dazzling lights, I was carrying a telephone pole on my cart, and it turned over in the middle of an intersection. Everyone around ran for their lives. Because of these kinds of experiences, I still know the geography of Tokyo like the back of my hand. Keep going?
Sure. Or you can pass it to Tamman. Tamman, you want to come up?
I'll read one there. I was a laborer among laborers and a friend to laborers. Just like the laborers who smelled of sweat, I would go to the work sites and work until the sweat was pouring down my body. They were my brothers, and I didn't mind the terrible smells. I shared sleeping quilts with them that were so filthy that black lice crawled across them in a line formation. I didn't hesitate to grasp hands that were caked with dirt. Their sweat mixed with grime was filled with an irresistible warmth of heart. It was their warm hearts that I found so attractive.
Tamman. You may come up.
Come here closer.
Primarily, I worked as a laborer at the Kawasaki steel mill and shipyard. In the shipyard, there were barges used to haul coal. We would form teams of 3 laborers each and work until 1 o'clock in the morning to fill a barge with 54 kilos, 120 tons of coal. We Koreans could do in one night what it took the Japanese 3 days to accomplish. There were people at some work sites who extorted the blood and sweat of the laborers. Often these were the foremen who directly managed the laborers. They would take 30% of the money earned by the laborers they managed and keep it for themselves. The laborers were powerless to do anything about this. The foreman would exploit the weak, but curry favor with those who were strong. I became so angry with one foreman that I finally went to him with 2 friends and demanded that he pay the workers their full wages. "If you make someone work, then pay him exactly what he's owed," I told him. He still refused, so we went to him a second day and even a third day. We were determined to keep up the pressure until he relented. Finally, I kicked him and he even fell down. I usually am a quiet and passive person, but when I become angry, the stubborn character of my younger years come back. The Kawasaki steel mill had vats used to store sulfuric acid. Workers would clean these by going into them and making the raw material flow out. The fumes from the sulfuric acid were extremely toxic, and a person could not remain inside for more than 15 minutes. Even in such deplorable working conditions, the workers risked their lives in order to have food to eat. Food was that precious. I was always hungry. I was careful, though, to never eat a meal for my own sake. I felt there needed to be a specific reason for me to eat a particular meal. So as I would sit down to each meal, I would ask myself the reason for my hunger. Did I really work hard? Did I work for myself or for a public purpose? I would face a bowl of rice and tell it, "I am eating you so that I can do tasks that are more glorious and more for the public good than what I did yesterday." Then the rice would smile back at me with its approval. In those instances, the time spent eating a meal was mystic and joyful. When I didn't feel qualified to talk this way, I would skip the meal no matter how hungry I might be. As a result, there were not many days when I would have even 2 meals. I didn't limit myself to 2 meals a day because I had a small appetite. In fact, once I began to eat, there was no limit to the amount I could consume. I once ate 11 large bowls of udon, noodles, in one sitting. Another time, I ate 7 bowls of a dish consisting of chicken and a fried egg over rice. Despite this appetite, I kept up my custom of not eating lunch and limiting myself to 2 meals a day until I was more than 30 years old.
The sensation of hunger is a type of nostalgia. I knew very well about the nostalgia of hunger, but I believed it was the least I could do to sacrifice 1 meal a day for the sake of the world. I also never allowed myself to wear new clothes. No matter how cold it might get, I would not heat my room. When it was extremely cold, I used a newspaper to cover myself. It felt as warm as a quilt made of silk. I am very familiar with the value of a sheet of newspaper. At times, I would simply go live for a while in an area of Shinagawa where poor people lived. I slept with them, using rags for cover. On warm, sunny days, I picked lice from their hair and ate rice with them. There were many prostitutes on the streets of Shinagawa. I would listen to them tell me about themselves, and I became their best friend without ever drinking a drop of liquor. Some people claim they need to be drunk in order to speak candidly about what is on their mind, but that is just an excuse. When these women realized that I was sincere in my sympathy for them, even without drinking any liquor, they opened their hearts to me and told me their troubles. I worked in many different jobs during my studies in Japan. I was a janitor in an office building. I wrote letters for illiterate people. I worked at various job sites and was a foreman. I was a fortune teller. When I needed money quickly, I wrote calligraphy and sold it. I never fell behind in my studies, however. I believed that all these things were part of my training process. I did all sorts of jobs and met all sorts of people. In the process, I learned a lot about people. Because I had this experience, I can now take one look at a person and have a good idea of what the person does for a living and whether he is a good person. I don't have to weigh various thoughts in my head because my body will tell me first.
I still believe that a developed good character a person needs to experience many difficulties before turning 30. Oh, sorry. I still believe that to develop. Sorry. People need to go down into the crucible of despair at the bottom of human existence and experience what that is like. People need to discover new possibilities in the midst of hell. It is only when climbing out of the depths of despair that making a new determination that we can be reborn as people able to pioneer a new future. We should not look only in one direction. We should look at both those who are in a higher position and those lower. We should know to look east, west, south, and north. To live a successful life depends on how well we see with our mind's eye. To see well with the mind's eye, we must have many different experiences and remember them. Even in the most difficult situations, we should maintain our composure, demonstrate warmth towards others, be self-reliant, and adapt well to many circumstances. A person of good character must be accustomed to rising to a high position and then quickly falling to a low position. Most people are afraid of falling from a high position, so they do everything they can to preserve it. However, water that does not flow becomes stagnant. A person who rises to a high position must be able to go back down and wait for the time to come up again. When the opportunity comes, he can rise to an even higher position than before. This is the type of person who can acquire a greatness that is admired by many people and is a great leader. These are the experiences that a person should have before turning 30.
Today I tell young people to experience everything that can in the world. They need to directly or indirectly experience everything in the world, as if they were devouring an encyclopedia. It is only then they can form their own identity. A person's self-identity is his clear subjective nature. Once a person has has the confidence to say, I can go all around the country, and I will never come across a person who is capable of defeating me. Then he is ready to take on any task and have the confidence to accomplish it successfully. When a person lives life in this way, he will be successful. Success is assured. This is the conclusion I have arrived at while living as a beggar in Tokyo.
Okay, Ginger.
I started meals and
Shared.
I shared meals and slept with laborers in Tokyo. Shared the grief of hunger with beggars, learned the hard life, and earned my doctorate in the philosophy of suffering. Only then was I able to understand God's will as He worked to bring salvation to humanity. It is important to become the king of suffering before age 30. The way to gain the glory of the kingdom of heaven is to become a king of suffering.
Okay, so in reading this, does anyone have anything they want to share? Anything that they think of when they read this? Anyone? Oma?
Father often say that he went to each stage of the course he went. It means from servant of servant course and the servant and so on to the God and to parents. And always people, just in the graduation of the UB, I had many story of the talking about success, successful career or successful life. But I thought always feeling that you going up and then celebrate, and then after what do we need to do next? And then Father taught us was you go down again to create something new and learn, be humble and learn. But through that, we can grow again to more advanced to the character, and I liked it, and also that in my life, always I have to go up and go down. God has put me down to some reason, and then I learned many things.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Actually, what Oma's saying is very much what I wanted to talk about today. That's my sermon. As I mentioned, I had, this weekend I was resting and I was, you know how you have dreams and they kind of are not clear? Like, Father called them dog dreams, like where you're just sort of wandering around, You're not really getting a revelation from God or some spiritual experience. It's not a high spirit world. It's not low either, it's just sort of vague and random. Does anyone have experiences like that in dreams where it just, the scene changes again and again and again, and you don't feel like you really have control of the situation? You're sort of participating, and you're sort of viewing it, and you're not really clear. It's not really clear a feeling. And then these strange things happen, and you don't know where they come from, and then when you try to tell the story of the dream to somebody later, it's like it doesn't make sense, and you can't tell the story because it's like, and then this person came, and suddenly I was over here, and then I was up here, and then this happened, and that's right, and this person, it's like random. Well, I had a lot of dreams like that, and I had occasion to think about my life, and when I was young, I think I was troubled by a lot more intense kind of temptations or struggles than I am now. It's taken me a long time, but I actually realized that I was grateful for all these dreams. In a way that they like Oma was saying, it kind of brings you down again. Because we always define success as accomplishing something, like moving forward, like in the Meet the Robinsons movie. Keep moving forward, this idea that we always have to move forward. And that if you're not moving forward, you're stagnant, you're dead, you're not a successful person. We look at someone who's staying at home with their parents and we think that person's a failure or a loser or something, right? People always say, if you think of a successful person, they probably have a job, a creative job where they're really being creative and they're making several $100,000 a year doing what they love, and they're very innovative and intelligent and this kind of person, that we think of as someone who's successful. Like Oma was saying, these success stories. Someone makes a lot of money, or they get recognition, or they work at a high level in the government, or they become a CEO of a company, and we think they're successful, right? We measure their success by the external accomplishments. I think God is different than that. I think, how does God measure success? I was thinking about these dreams, wandering through the spiritual world, wandering through my mind, and sometimes you just feel like no hope, or a vague kind of feeling, like, where do I go? What is my life about? What's the purpose of my life? Right? And then I realized I asked God about this. And I was reporting to God about my feelings and what I was going through. And then I think God showed me, or I understood, that even in that circumstance of losing everything or not feeling clear, you can be happy. And I realized that I was happy because I could feel God's love. I could feel that God was loving me. And even though I was struggling with different things, if I could digest these difficult circumstances, I would transform myself. I would change myself. The only person I can change, after all, is me. So, people watching at home, I'm putting these on the internet. What's my purpose in putting my sermons on the internet? Am I trying to change the world? In a way, I am. But actually, I realize the only person I can change is myself. But I can change myself. But how do you change yourself? By putting on new clothes, by having new habits, by getting a new job or something like that? By being more successful externally? The way you change yourself is by suffering, by going down. Go down until you hit the bottom. Most people are terrified of that. Are you terrified of that at home? Are you terrified of that, my children and family? Are you terrified of going down, of hitting bottom? Hitting that place of no hope?
Terrified of staying down.
You don't want to stay there, right? But don't be afraid. Even if you go down to the very bottom, that is the place where you can transform yourself. Because that's the lowest point you have in your character. I wonder if I can get this point across. This is a complex idea, and I want to try to make sure that you understand it. When I'm suffering, it's like the suffering burns up or consumes my sin. It consumes my fallen nature, my selfish nature. Especially if I welcome the suffering. If I'm complaining, then nothing good happens from suffering. Suffering doesn't help people who are complaining, or who feel that it's unfair, or who are desperately trying to get away from the suffering. But if you welcome the suffering, and you watch the suffering eating away at your sin, and it does, because if you love people when you're suffering, God can claim you. And that suffering then will be like a good thing for you to melt away the sinful part. Almost like as if sin were meat that's stuck on you. And God dips you into piranhas, like the Amazon River. And all these piranhas come, right? They're like, and you're suffering. But actually all they're eating is the sin. The suffering cannot destroy what is true in you. The suffering cannot destroy what is good in you, what is loving in you. Like Jesus, when he died on the cross, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." He loved his enemies. He loved the people that were killing him. Look at Father's words here. Today I tell young people to experience everything they can in the world. They need to directly or indirectly experience everything in the world as if they were devouring an encyclopedia. So you can learn so much in that bottom place, right? When you're suffering, you can learn. By loving everyone around you, by suffering and loving and suffering and loving, it is only then that they can form their own identity. Interesting. Father says your identity is formed in suffering and in learning about all the things of the world. A person's self-identity is his clear, subjective nature. A person's identity, self-identity, is his clear, subjective nature. In other words, when you've gone down into hell, into the bottom of hell where you're suffering, but even in that place, at your lowest place, and you deserve to be there, you belong there. That is part of your nature. Don't run away from it. Don't run away from the part of you that is not fun, not good, not nice. Do you think you can run away from your own nature? You think you can run away from your bad nature? A lot of people, they want to be successful. That means they want to become this image of success, a person who can look good to the world. But in their quiet moments at home, even that successful person doubts themselves, has questions about who they are, struggles. Like Peter Pan, you can't run away from your shadow. Right? Carl Jung talked about this, the shadow self. Right? The shadow self. That we have a shadow self inside of ourselves. I believe it was Carl Jung. And this shadow self is we talked about the iceberg of sin. Remember 2 weeks ago we talked about the iceberg of sin? If you're sensitive, you can feel the entire weight of all the sin of your ancestors inside of you. You can actually, it's almost like if you hit a rock, but if it's a big rock, what does it sound like? If it's a giant boulder, what does it sound like? Right? Different sound. If you hit a little tiny pebble, what does it sound like? Right? It sounds different. So if you make a sound charge, like an explosion on this iceberg of sin, you go, and you'll hear the resonance in the iceberg, like, and you can know how big your iceberg of sin is, right? Is it big?
Yes.
Yes. We are sitting on a lot of sin. And so, you can't run away from it. Can the top of the iceberg run away from the bottom of the iceberg? It's like,
No, you can't.
and the iceberg's floating going along. It's still like that's still there. No. The iceberg of sin doesn't go anywhere, right? It's following us around wherever we go. You can't run away. So we have to embrace that iceberg of sin. By embracing it. This is me. I'm not going to run away from my sin. I'm not going to run away from my sin. This is my sin. I'm not going to blame anyone else for it. I'm not going to complain anymore about it. I'm going to be happy. Aha! That is a truly happy man or woman. As someone who can embrace their sin and still be happy. Then that's true happiness. When you go to the bottom and you can be happy in the bottom by loving the people that are around you, then that is true happiness. You will find happiness. No one can take that happiness away from you. That's why no one could ever take away Father's happiness. He was smiling no matter what was going on. Even as he had to go to Danbury Prison in Connecticut. Same thing happened in Korea. When he was taken away to prison, in Dongdaemun Prison, or Sodaemun Prison. His hands were manacled, handcuffed. He raised his hands in the air and smiled and cheered at his disciples. Like, don't worry, I'll be back. Nothing could bring him down. Because he was happy in the midst of sin. In fighting his sin. What is sin? I asked this question to God. This is the answer I got just today. Sin is my situation, my feelings, my thoughts, my relationships that are not centered on God, that are not godly. Those dreams, you know, those dog dreams, those strange dreams where you're wandering around, you can feel, I don't have the power inside myself to get out of here. Right? This is my realm. This is where I belong. These are my peeps. Right? These are my people. I'm with them. These relationships are not good relationships. They're not true relationships. The relationships we have in our life are not good relationships. There's something good in them. There's something not good in them. But these are my relationships. These reflect my sin. So when I can change these relationships to make them lovely and happy, then my sin is gone. And so as I relate to the world around me, as I give and take with the world around me, like Father did in Tokyo, with all kinds of people, high and low, he was loving everyone. He was bringing joy to everyone. He was removing sin. He was cleansing sin. And when we remove sin, we are happy. We can feel the burden is getting lighter. The iceberg is getting lighter. The iceberg is getting smaller. The iceberg of sin is melting. And there's a feeling of joy in that. And we can return that joy to God. We can return that joy to God. God doesn't want fake joy or false joy. He doesn't want you to pretend to be happy. He wants you to go to the bottom of hell and really be happy. In the bottom of hell. Because when you're in the bottom of hell, that's where all of your sin can come out. You can see all of your own sin. And what better place to clean it up than when you can see it? If you can't see it, you can't clean it up. But if you can see it, if you can feel your sin in relationships with others, then you can work on it, right? Then you can clean it up. Once a person has the confidence to say, I can go all around the country and I will never come across a person who is capable of defeating me, then he is ready to take on any task and have the confidence to accomplish it successfully. I've heard fathers not just say, I can go all around the country, but all around the world, all around the spiritual world. In other words, you can go into hell. If you could say, I can go right into hell, but I will never come across a person who's capable of defeating me. Finally, even Satan. Right? Even Lucifer, the angel Lucifer. If we can meet Lucifer and say, you know, you don't need to yell at me anymore. You don't need to accuse me. You don't need to tempt me. You don't need to do all this crap to me. I understand that I have sinned. And I'm going to work on it. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. What is Satan going to do? He's just like a fish. He can't do anything. You're free. When you finally accept your sin, when you finally embrace your sin, accept it. This is my responsibility. I'm not going to bum it off on somebody else. I'm not going to try to escape it. I'm not going to try to be successful so I can look good and hopefully feel good, but not. I'm not going to run away from it. I'm not going to blame anyone else for it. And I'm not going to be depressed about it. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to welcome it with a smile. I'm going to return happiness to God from the bottom of hell. That person is truly capable of giving God joy. That person is capable of liberating God. God will watch that person with great love. And you will feel God's love. Even as you're in the bottom of hell, you will feel God's love. And everywhere around you will turn into heaven. It won't be hell anymore. Do you remember the lovely story I used to tell you guys? What's the difference between hell and heaven?
Oh.
I'll remind you. I'll tell you. Maybe you little ones don't remember it. A man died and went to the spiritual world, and he thought he was going to go to hell because he'd been a very selfish person and he'd been very evil. So, but he got there, and there was this big banquet table full of the best kinds of food that he loved. And he thought himself seated at the banquet table, but the table was very wide. And fortunately, he had, now in Asia they use chopsticks, in the West you could say a fork, attached to his hand. And he could reach the food. But when he tried to put it in his mouth, the fork was too long, and it would fall on his shoulders or on his lap. And he looked around, and everybody was in the same situation. They were all skinny too. They were starving to death. The table was filled with people. And everyone was starving to death because the forks were too long. And he realized, I'm in hell. And he wept. And he kept trying to feed himself. And he kept crying. And everyone else was crying and weeping and trying to feed themselves. And he realized, this is hell. Then, God gave him a glimpse of what heaven is. Maybe it wasn't him, maybe it's somebody else. And this person also arrived. A different person arrived in a beautiful banquet room full of beautiful food on the table, and everyone's sitting there, but they're all fat and well fed. And they also have long forks attached to their hands. But they're not trying to feed themselves. They're feeding each other. And it's a very powerful story, isn't it? Because that's the difference between heaven and hell. We're living in a world of hell because everyone is thinking of themselves. Because everyone is trying to take care of themselves. And that's not how God designed the universe. Nothing lives for its own sake. Bees live for the colony of bees, and they live for the flower. They travel from flower to flower, bringing pollen from one flower to another flower. Flowers don't exist for themselves. What do they give? The beauty and the flavor, the smell, the scent, and the hummingbirds and the bees come and take the nectar from their flower, and the nectar is feeding the hummingbirds and the bees. And then when the fruit comes, the fruit doesn't exist for itself. All the animals can eat the fruit, and then the seeds get spread throughout the countryside, and then more trees can come up. Everything exists in harmony. Look at animals and plants. The plant kingdom feeds us, feeds the animal kingdom, right? It feeds us. It also produces oxygen by burning carbon dioxide. But animals consume the oxygen and give off carbon dioxide, which feeds the plants. Also, our feces, our poop, goes in the ground and becomes fertilizer for the plants. And even when we die, our body can go in the ground if it's not covered with formaldehyde and all kinds of chemicals, and it can help feed the plants. So there's a relationship. Everything is living for the sake of something else. A man should live for a woman should live for a man. Parents should live for the children should live for their parents. So the universe was designed to be unselfish, but because of the fall, we are living in a selfish way, and we've created hell. Heaven is created when we go into hell and live as heavenly people. All it takes is one person at that table of hell to start feeding other people. And then that whole table will suddenly transform into heaven. Because everyone will realize, oh, that's the way out of this hell. And they'll start feeding the person originally that started giving. It may take them a while to figure it out. In the beginning, they may be selfish, right? You feed them, they're act like animals, right? Because they're so hungry. But after a while, maybe they're filled and they realize, I should feed this person who's been feeding me because he's starving too. And they'll feed you. But it takes a while for people to figure it out, right? That's why our job is painful sometimes. Because you love people, but not necessarily, they won't always necessarily understand it or receive it. Maybe they're going to be angry or judge you because the only people that ever loved them betrayed them. Their parents, their friends. So they're going to test you, right? They're going to test your love. And you're going to have to go some time maybe loving people and not getting anything back. But that's okay. That's all right. Do it anyway. And after a while, they'll catch on. And they'll start to give you love back and you can feel love. And then that can spread. And the whole world can become a loving world. If you look around at social media and other things, you can see the world is becoming a more loving world. There are people still who are angry and hurt. There are people who are seriously angry, like the people who blow themselves up. But overall, our world is starting to understand each other. They're starting to think about other people. They're starting to share good news stories, right? People who are unselfish. Those things come out on social media. I think the world is changing. But we have to be the leaders, the pioneers, the ones who go first. Changing the world. But again, I can't change the world. Who can I change? Just me. I can just transform myself. Making myself loving. Making myself kind. Even though everyone around me may be selfish and angry. I can be loving. I can be kind. And I can see that as a chance to burn up my sin. To cleanse my sin. I still believe, Father says, that to develop good character, a person needs to experience many difficulties before turning 30. People need to go down into the crucible of despair, at the bottom of human existence, and experience what that is like. People need to discover new possibilities in the midst of hell. It is only when climbing out of the depths of despair and making a new determination that we can be reborn as people able to pioneer a new future. Okay. So what should we title our sermon today? Building a new future from the midst of despair?
Highway to hell. No, I'm kidding.
Let me just give me the songbook, love. This is something I asked Oma to sing this morning, was When I Behold the Lord. And there's one line in here that's very beautiful. In the first verse, when I behold the Lord of all, my old self dies away. So dies the world of sinfulness, giving birth to good. Soon a new self emerges, clear and bright and pure. Come and behold the new life, heaven and earth reborn. Right? Soon a new self emerges, clear and bright and pure. Come and behold a new life, heaven and earth reborn. So, maybe we could call this Rebirth, a new life from the crucible of despair. I like that.
It's too long.
It's not too long.
So long.
Rebirth. And I made a small and for you. Rebirth and new life. You don't like the from the crucible of despair? From the crucible. Crucible of despair. Okay, that's our title. Rebirth, a new life from the crucible of despair. So welcome suffering, and it'll transform you if you have a beautiful heart. Okay? And it'll test your heart, make your heart beautiful. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Heavenly Parent, thank you so much for giving us truth and love, for watching over us as we go into the crucible of despair, as we challenge ourselves to go into hell and to transform ourselves by loving the people in hell. Because after all, if I'm in hell, I belong there too. And if I love people, then I can win my way out by love. Help me, Father, to accept my sin. Accept the sin I am born with, the sin I have inherited, and the sin I have done in my life, and welcome the opportunity that you give me to change through suffering. Help me welcome the opportunities that you give me to change. And welcome them with a smile, with a big heart, with a lot of love, with joyfulness. And then I can spread that joy and love to everyone around me. And like the person at the table in heaven, I can take care of others and allow them to take care of me finally. Not to worry about myself. Thank you so much. I ask your blessing on everyone here, everyone listening at home, that they can receive guidance and inspiration from these words that true parents have given, that I have given, that you are giving, Heavenly Father, that come from your heart, that we can all receive inspiration and guidance from your words, and that we can live our lives unselfishly and with a joyfulness and a happiness, and we can return joy and glory to you and to true parents, and that we can transform this world into heaven. I ask your blessing on this day. I offer myself to you, and my family to you, and my nation to you. I offer my world to you, in the name of Raman and Tamiko Montanaro, a blessed central family. 축복 중심 가정. 라만과 타미코 몬타나로 이름으로 보고드립니다. 아주. 아멘. Thank you, everyone.